Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stoney Acres. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Finally, we've had a break in the weather and spring has arrived, and that means we can be out in the garden. And it also means it's time to get our peas planted. So today we're going to talk about a really quick tutorial on growing peas. But before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And while you're at it, click the notification bell so you get notice every time we release new videos, which is about every Saturday. And then also do me a favor, we're just getting started over on Instagram, and I would love it if you would jump over to our Instagram channel and follow us there as well. There's a link down in the description that will take you over there, so I would appreciate that. Okay, so let's get started talking about peas. So we're going to cover 4 things today when we're talking about peas. We're going to talk about when to plant them, we're going to talk about where to plant them, we're going to talk about the 3 different types of peas that there are available for you to plant, and then we'll talk a little bit about harvesting and when you can expect to harvest. Okay, so let's start by talking about when we should be planting our peas. So peas are fairly hardy. That means that they stand up pretty well to frost. The plants themselves will stand up to frost. You actually don't want frost or freezing temperatures to hit the actual pea pods. They're not very tolerant to frost, but the plants themselves will handle frost pretty well. So that means that we can get our peas planted anywhere from about 8 weeks all the way up until about 4 weeks before your last spring frost. So that's a pretty big window. Really kind of depends on where you live and what your weather conditions are like, but peas are not afraid of a little bit of snow and things like that, so you should be okay to get those planted pretty early. If you are interested in having a little bit more of an extended harvest, you could do a planting about every 2 weeks. So you could start at 8 weeks before and then go 6 weeks and 4 weeks, maybe even 2 weeks before your last frost, and that would give you a nice extended harvest of peas. One of the other things that I like to recommend is that you cover your peas with some type of fabric row cover in the spring. This is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it gives a nice warm environment for them to get germinated in and get up and growing. But the other thing that it does that's really important is it helps protect them from the birds. So birds are big fans of peas. They'll dig up the seeds, and they also love those little tender seedlings. So we have a flock of quail that have moved into our neighborhood, and boy, I have to be careful now because they just love to eat those tender peas just as they come up. Once they get up and established, then the birds seem to leave them alone, but it's a good idea to cover your bed with some fabric row cover. That keeps those birds out for the first few weeks of your peas' life, helps them to survive that, okay? Actual planting of peas is really quite simple. You can do it one of 2 ways. First would be you could transplant with seedlings. I'm not a huge fan of transplanting with seedlings. A lot of people have good success, but I have found that pea plants are a little bit tender. They're not really big fans of having their roots disturbed, and so I have just found that sowing directly in the garden is the best way to plant your peas. But if you want to try it from transplants, I know a lot of people that have had a great success, so I'm not discouraging you for that, but I just think that just go ahead and throw the seeds in and you should be good. So when you're planting your peas, you want to plant the seed about 1 inch deep, and you're going to give them about 2 to 4 inches space between the plants, kind of depending on how intensive you want to plant. We're big on crunching everything together, and so we plant pretty tight. But if you want to spread out and give those plants a little bit more room to grow, then you could space them as far as about 4 inches apart, and you should be in pretty good shape. Now let's talk really quickly about where you should be planting your peas. So peas prefer full sun, so they would like an area that has 7 to 8 hours of sunlight a day at a minimum. But peas are actually one of those full sun plants that actually will get away with less than full sun, okay? So if you've got a shady area that maybe only gets 5 or 6 hours of sunlight a day, it's okay to plant peas there. They'll do all right. They maybe won't thrive quite as well as they would have in full sun, but they'll actually do pretty good, okay? Now, soil conditions for peas ought to be a rich, well-drained soil and something that's loose and easy for the root system to dig into, okay? So peas have a relatively shallow root system, and so it's always a really good idea to amend your soil with compost or some other type of organic material before you plant your peas. And so this bed here, we just put some compost in about a week ago. We're going to be planting our peas today. And that gives the soil a chance to kind of get loosened up and puts some nutrients into the soil, but also makes it easier for the roots of the pea plant to penetrate, okay? Now, peas like it cool, and so mulch is always a really good idea for peas. So you can mulch those plants once they're up and established. I would recommend that you mulch them. I like to just use some extra compost. I'll just put 2 or 3 inches of compost down, but you could use grass clippings, you could use hay or straw, you could even use shredded leaves. Anything like that would be a good option to mulch those peas. It keeps the roots nice and cool and helps to just promote overall health of the plant. One thing that you need to make sure that you provide for your peas is something for them to grow on. Even the dwarf varieties like to have some type of support. They're viney plants, they get top heavy, and they would really like something to support them. So even the dwarf varieties will put up a little fence like you see here in this cutaway video that helps to support those plants and give them a little something to grow on. But if you are growing some of the taller varieties, so this would be things like snow peas and sugar snap peas especially, you really definitely need to choose some type of a trellis. So we like to use these tomato cages. So we've got these square tomato cages. They seem to work out really well. They're about 3.5 feet tall and do a pretty good job. The peas will end up growing about this tall, but they're nice and supported from underneath, and so they do really well. Another great option is a cattle panel trellis like this one. You can grow them up. They'll do really well. Peas aren't super tall, but you'll get them, you know, probably about this tall. They usually are about 6 or 7 feet at the most. So they'll grow up nicely on a trellis, and that could be a good addition to a springtime trellis for sure. Other options, I've seen people do some really fun things with bamboo stakes or even just like tree branches. There's lots of options there. You could just use a little fence. The other nice thing about peas is they're very light. The plants themselves are not very heavy, and so that lends themselves to a nice string trellis. So you can do all of the different types of string trellises as well, and there's not a lot of weight that will pull that string off, and so those are good options as well. But you definitely do need to be choosing some type of a trellis system when you're growing peas. It just helps to make them more productive and healthier overall. So good option to add some trellises. Okay, next let's talk really quick about the 3 different types of peas that you can grow in your garden. So there's traditionally 3 different categories of peas that you can grow. And the first one, and probably the most well-known and well-grown, is the traditional shelling pea, or they're sometimes referred to as an English pea. And these are peas that are grown strictly for the seed inside the pod. So shelling peas, their pod is hardly ever tender, and so you are going to just wait and let those peas mature inside the pod, and then you're going to harvest those, shell them from the pod, and harvest those for the peas themselves. We don't eat the pods on those. They're just tough and fibrous, and so we're growing those for the peas. The next type of pea that you can grow is what is referred to commonly as a snow pea. So snow peas are grown for the pod itself. So we're not really interested in the pea inside. Instead, we're interested in the yummy, tender pod. And these are the ones that grow the big, broad, flat, thin pods. And that's when we harvest them. We harvest them when they're young and tender and before they've started to develop peas. And they go great in stir fries, perfect for eating fresh, throwing in salads, just really yummy. And those again are called snow peas. And then the third variety of peas that we can choose are called snap peas, and sometimes you'll hear them referred to as sugar snap peas. These are a delicious, sweet, easy to grow pea. If you're brand new to gardening and you're just starting out growing peas, this is the variety that I would recommend that you grow. Snap peas, the reason why they're so easy is because you can harvest them at any stage, and it really doesn't matter, okay? So you can grow them like you would a snow pea and harvest just the pod. They're young and tender and sweet and yummy, or you can let them mature and they will fill out and you can shell the pods and use those as well. Or you can even eat the whole pod with the mature peas inside because again, that pod stays nice and tender and is really easy to eat and just fantastic. So I love the sugar snap peas, and we've really started shifting away from the traditional English peas into the sugar snap peas just because there's so much more versatility in how and when you can harvest and how you eat them and everything like that. So those are your 3 different types of peas. And last but not least, let's talk about harvesting. So you should expect to start harvesting somewhere between 75 to 90 days after you've planted your peas. Depends on the variety. The snow peas are going to be your first, sugar snap peas second, your English peas will kind of be the last ones that are ready. But again, 75 to 90 days. With the snow peas and the sugar snap peas, if you want an extended harvest, then you need to get out and harvest early and often, okay? So with the snow peas and the sugar snap peas, we want the plant to be focused on growing more pods. And as soon as we kind of shift from growing the pod into growing the actual peas inside the pod, then the plant stops producing as many flowers and it stops creating as many new flowers for you. And so if you're out there harvesting a lot, probably like every other day, then you'll continue to get the plant to produce more and more flowers and you'll get more and more pods, okay? That isn't the case with the English peas. You obviously have to leave those on and let those mature. But again, the more often and the earlier you get out there to harvest them, the sweeter those peas are going to be. But if you're like us, the best time to eat peas is fresh out in the garden, okay? The sooner you eat your peas, the sweeter they're going to be. If you take them and put them in the fridge and store them for a long time, the sugars start to convert into starches, and so they lose quite a bit of the sweetness and the yumminess to them. So the best time to harvest peas and to eat them is to just harvest them and eat them right away. Within a couple of hours of harvesting will make them the sweetest and the freshest. All right, so that is our quick tutorial on how to grow peas. Hopefully you guys found this enjoyable and it helped you out a little bit. Now, got a special for you. Part of the Gardening Academy, every month we do a mini course, which is usually somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour long, where we do a deep dive into some gardening topic. And this month, our topic for the Gardening Academy is going to be growing peas. And so our mini course is going to be a deep dive where we really look at all the details on growing peas and how to grow them and how to deal with problems and you know, all the different options that you have available. And so I wanted to invite you guys to come and join the Gardening Academy because that's where you can get access to this mini course. And again, it's going to be about 45 minutes to an hour long. I'll be filming it here in the next day or two. It should be up by mid-month. But I would love to have you come and join the Gardening Academy, which is our monthly subscription service where we provide you guys with all kinds of great content that helps you become better gardeners. We do planting guides, we do these mini courses, we do live Q&As, we have expert interviews, recipes, cooking advice, and pressure cooking and freezing and preserving advice. And so lots of great stuff there to help you become a better gardener. And again, that's called the Gardening Academy. And you can join, there's a link down in the description that you can click to join the Gardening Academy. And I would love to have you come and join us. It's a great way to support the channel. It helps to kind of offset the free content that we're giving here on YouTube. So great way to support us, and I would love to have you guys come and join. Okay? All right, so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to go over and follow us on Instagram as well. There's a link for that down in the description. Everybody have a fantastic week. We'll see you next Saturday. Happy gardening.